microphone back to stand right there. This is the municipal portion of the presentation that we have. And I really felt bad for a while because after Dr. Murray spoke and the first panel with Tim and Patrick and Raphael, I thought, I'm going to be like Bell. But thank God George's panel got up before us because now I'm feeling so bad. Now we're seeing the fact that we got some great planners sitting up here and they're going to tell you about your suburbs. I'm from the suburbs. So I am the devil today, just accept it, deal with it, and we'll get along just fine. So, what we have here today, we've got Natalie Crowley from the City of Palm Beach Gardens, William Waters from the City of Lake Forest, Karen Galante from everywhere, but particularly former Mayor Jupiter, also AICP's planner, Tim Stillings from a lot of different places, most recently Delray Beach, Rick Green from a lot of places as well, most recently the City of West Palm Beach. I've got a bunch of stuff here telling you what they do, who they were, and all that stuff. I'm going to let them introduce themselves. But before we get started, one thing we've been talking about all morning is density. And we haven't done, all right, I'm just going to talk louder. This is better. This is more. All right, I'm just going to talk louder. One thing we've been talking about all morning is density. We haven't really tested. I mean, we're the ones, the whole group here, since when George asked the question, most everybody was a public planner. We're the ones that have to sell this to municipal elected officials, to county elected officials who have to buy into the fact that density isn't a bad thing. That density means something, that it's something we want, okay? And it's going to help Ken and his group build cheaper houses because we can entitle them a lot faster and be more efficient and give them more units. And Tony isn't going to get screwed because she's paying too much for property. So what we need to do is we need to test ourselves on some density quizzes. And what I'll do is I'm going to put the panel on the spot and have them do it first before we jump into the crowd and see what we got. Yeah, they didn't plan on this. So let's give this a shot. And we're going to do we're not going to do this interactive polling crap or anything like that. We're going to do this old school. Okay, we're going to do this by team. So I'm going to need you to move really quickly. Tim, I need you to sit next to William. This works out perfect. Okay, so we've got 3 teams. We were going to have 6 people, we only have 5. So we're going to have Northern Exposure, Jupiter, Palm Beach Gardens. We've got Southern Comfort. We've got Delray Beach and Lake Worth. And Rick was going to have somebody with him. I'm here, but I'm not going to be on that team. Rick's going to be West Palm Beach because they're in the center of everything. They're the oldest city in the county. Rick, you're going to be master of the universe, baby. Okay? All right, so with that, what we're going to do is let's start with a little quiz. And what you're going to do is, the way you're going to do this is your buzzer is going to be the name of your team. So you remember your name. Come on, man! Northern Exposure! Come on, you're killing me! Northern Exposure. Your team? All right, Rick? Just say MOU, baby. Master of the universe, all right? All right. Now, feel free to jump in on one or all of the options, okay? All right. Take a look at the screens. Jump in. Come on. That's part of the game. Try and take a look and see if you can guess any of those 3 columns density. Let everybody jump in at once here. Help me out. I'm not hearing anybody jump in. All right. Which one are you going for? First, second, or third column? Going left to right, of course.
I'll go back.
Okay.
I would go for 2 dwellings for a different.
Is that your final answer? Okay. Thank you for playing, not today. Okay. Anybody else want to jump in and see if they can recover those points that Northern Exposure lost?
Sure, Southern Comfort.
All right, go for it.
The right, I'm going to say it's 6.
Thank you for playing. Not today. Rick, you're going to pass on this?
The right is 2.
Okay, you know what? Here we go, guys. They're all wrong. All right? Left column, 0.2 units per acre. Middle column, 0.3 units per acre. And third column is also 0.3 units per acre. Okay? So that's the thing, and this is a steam group. When they tell you what they've done with their background, I mean, we got some smart people here, okay? And we're the ones that have to sell this stuff to the county. We're the ones that have to sell this stuff to our elected officials. You've got to really know this shit pretty tight to be able to sell it and see what the benefits are. Otherwise, it ain't going to work so well. Let's see what else we got. Really, Stillings? All right. Well, that's okay. Now, isn't that the way, for consultants out there, isn't that the way you walk into most public hearings? The deck is stacked against you, okay? Come on. All right, this is a little easier. Anybody jump in still with the panel? Take a look. Nope. All right. Since everybody picked the left, 3.4 units per acre. Okay? Well, it gives you the context. You've got to look at the entire picture. It's gross density. You got the context, neighborhood plan. It's what, and it's essentially what we're judged against when we go into our local governments to get approval. You know, you can still tell you what the net density is, and if you've got great architecture and everything looks good, you can sell some of this net density. But ultimately, a lot of people have been trained. These elected officials are looking at what's your density, how does it fit to your comp plan. If you match your comp plan, you're good. It doesn't matter if you've got a pocket of really high density. If you match your overall net density, your gross density, you're good. 3.4 units. This is all from visualizing density. Okay, so I had to make this shit up. All right, we'll try one more. You know what? How about the crowd get into it? Okay, so here, we'll make this easy. Everybody use your last name. Okay, your last name as your buzzer. Let me just practice it. Let's say you want to go for anything there. We're just practicing. Somebody try.
Tim Barnes.
No, last name. Come on, Patrick. All right, so that's what we got to do. All right, let's do something. Let's see what we want to go with. Let's go for that. Anyone? Don't jump in, panel. Okay, so this interactive stuff, you can hide behind a clicker. Nobody knows your wrong answer. Here, it's a little different. The next session starts at 12.
So Delaney, I'll do that.
Okay.
Left side also.
Wait a second. Wait, you got to put it on.
Delaney,
Oh,
Delaney.
good. Okay.
Left side, 10.
Anybody else? Tampa, Florida, 4.5 minutes away. Crazy stuff. All right. So this issue, just a little lesson that basically the deal is you've got to be able to sell it. In a lot of cases, it has to do with the overall design. It has to do with the overall concept you're trying to put through. But it's important that we're able to convey the right message and the right instruction, if you will, the learning experience for our students. So, back to where we were at. All right, so what we'll do, the way we kind of set this up, to try and save the constraints of the time, is that each of the municipalities represented here before you today are going to do a little bit of an Ignite style presentation. We're going to limit it to about 20 plus or minus slides, some a little more, some a little less. And also, I'm trying to stay within a 5-minute time limit, some a little more, maybe some a little less. So that's kind of the gist of where we're going today. And what we'll do is, you know, you guys can either this one goes first, but why don't we just start on this end? Okay. You know what? You guys work it out in 2 seconds to decide. You'll go, okay, no problem. We'll give you up in a second. But basically, just to kind of set the tone for where we're going with this, you know, like I said, we've got gardens here, Lake Worth, Jupiter, West Palm Beach, and Delray Beach. All have eastern communities. They have coastal access and that type of thing. I'm from Wellington. I'm in the burbs. I'm in the middle of the county. That really bad intersection that Kim showed, that was in Wellington. Okay? That ridiculously expensive development that Raphael showed, that was Wellington. And 23,000, hell, it's got to be a lot more expensive now. But what's happened over time is we've seen changes in how communities are developing and what people want. Housing inherit really aren't the standard anymore. You know, but some of the visions we had didn't represent progress, and the American dreams changed over time. And so in the demand, as everybody has mentioned from the start, has really changed for what people want as far as housing, what people want as far as experiences, what people want as far as their surrounding environment. And the changing population shows that what we're seeing is the different age groups are also accounting for those changes. And what's happening is that, yeah, like I said, I must be the devil. I live in suburbia, I work in suburbia, and yeah, we you know, as far as some people are concerned in this room, we ride with it pretty good because, you know, everybody thinks we sit in traffic all day, we have a lot of VMTs, we have a heavy carbon footprint. But at some point in time, people had to have liked that and wanted that. I understand that everybody wants, you know, some of these experiences now. But you know, Tony wasn't building houses in the middle of suburbs because nobody was buying them. Last time I checked, our code enforcement guys and public works guys weren't holding guns to people's heads to live and stay in Wellington. Okay? It's just a different flavor that people want. And what we'll see, you know, everybody talks about the millennials and how they want to go east and they want to live and have the experiences and they want to ride their bikes, to ride their skateboards. Ultimately, their life cycle is going to end up changing, and they're going to want to move to the burbs because they'll want to have kids, and they'll want to have them in Catholic school, and they'll want to have them do all those other things. So it's a cyclical thing that we've got to plan for, and ultimately everybody can win if we just plan accordingly. And don't forget, some of those millennials that can't go east and can't afford those, they're living in suburbia with parents. Okay, so again, a lot of correlation that's put out there. Oh, if you live in the burbs, you're going to hire residents in BC. I'm fat because I like being king guys. Not because I live on a cul-de-sac and have sidewalks. Now, chances are that probably there is some relationship, but I think to put everything on it is a bit misleading. Some people think that we are the devil. You have no idea. So we can't do that, and the sustainability lessons are out there. The truth is out there, we can't stop it. And ultimately, what we figured out is, okay, we're going to plan communities to make this advance? Probably not. We're going to do that and do it a little differently. But unfortunately, or fortunately for those of us that like it, we have existing suburbs that we've got to deal with. And as the other panelists mentioned, you can't redo everything, start everything from scratch. So what you do is find ways to make those existing suburbs work well. We'll hear from the cities here, and then we'll get back to some more information to kind of wrap this section up. So Rick, without further ado, I'm going to set you up, and you'll be on. I'll walk you over here with the clicker, and feel free to stay at the table if you want, Rick. You can clicker.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you all for coming. I call this room my home away from home. Spend a lot of time here. Having just done a PowerPoint presentation of 120 slides, my biggest challenge was to try to keep this to 20. So I'll fly through this real quickly. But as has been the experience with most of you, we've seen property values decline since the housing boom. In 2008, 2009, there was a steady decline. West Palm Beach was no different. Values dropped by almost $5 billion in a 5-year span. And of course, with that, our property tax revenue declined at the same time. So we started to see it about starting to stabilize about 2012, 2013, which coincidentally was when I started back with the city of West Palm Beach. But again, we saw revenues drop $22 million, or 26% in 4 years. So when we were going through our tough times, there was a group of private sector builders, and it's kind of timely that we follow the group that just spoke. But that builder group was concerned because, again, our building division could not pay for itself. We didn't have enough building permit revenues coming in. So as a result, our entire building division had to take a pay cut. They started working a 32-hour week. And again, development basically came to a crawl. And this builders group was formed 2008, 2009. And we went to the group and said, can we increase our building permit fees? to again help fund this division. We didn't want to borrow money, we didn't want to tap into the city's fund. So we reached an agreement where we said we would be allowed to raise fees. Once we hit a value of $250 million in building permit fees, we would go back and lower our fees. That number we hit in June of 2014. So the challenge now, one of the many planning challenges that we have, is we right now have about $2.5 billion in construction in our pipeline right now, either going through planning review, going through building permit review under construction, a phenomenal amount of development. And that builders group has recently been reformed, so now we're working with them to try to address all of the issues that we're facing now with this massive growth in construction. So again, having worked 13 years in the private sector myself with DeVosta Pulte and with Lennar Homes as a vice president, I certainly understand what the previous group was talking about. So what we started doing back in 2013 is we had a developer outreach group. That list is about 258 strong. We meet every 3 to 4 months. And we basically do a state of the city because we recognize that it's got to be a partnership between the public and the private sectors. I'll put a plug in. We have our next meeting June 23rd, right across the hall, so anybody interested in attending that, certainly feel free. The other thing we did is, again, to try to ensure predictability. When a developer came in, we told them that if you applied on a certain date, this is when you can expect to be through our process. Generally, depending on the type of application, it's about 15 to 22 weeks. So we try to get them in because, again, we understand that time is money. 3 years ago, we had 57 people in my department, which consisted of planning, building, and code enforcement. Today, that number is about 88, a 54% increase. I'm asking for 13 more positions to try to keep up with the workload. I think we'll get at least 11 of the 13. Sorry, Angela, but we'll try to get those other 2. Our planning and zoning administrator in the back. But again, if we get everything we're asking for, we've gone from 57 people to 101 in just 3 short years. And again, a lot of the cost to fund our building division is coming out of building permit fees. We expect to have a surplus of about $10 million now. Again, during the bust, we couldn't afford to pay for the division. Now we've got a surplus of $10 million. So some of the challenges we had is that we're trying to encourage Class A office downtown as part of the newly created Flagler Financial District. We tried to encourage additional hotel development in our downtown area. We're trying to enhance the economic viability of our older corridors, Broadway, Northwood, South Dixie Highway. Again, trying to restore the residential neighborhood both north, south, and west of our downtown. And then lastly, as we talked about throughout, create more jobs throughout the city and encourage economic development. So these are all factors we are kind of focused on. In our downtown, let me explain briefly our transportation concurrency exemption area. Years ago, when we worked with the county to approve plans to allow us to build a maximum amount of square footage downtown, we came up with a ratio of 0.46. So for every if you take the residential square footage divided by non-residential, we had to maintain a ratio of at least 4.6 million square feet. So what that meant was that in order to build 15 million square feet of development downtown, we had to provide 6,944 units. I'm pleased to say, as was mentioned earlier by Raphael, we're at about 6,774 units right now, but less than 10 million square feet. So our ratio right now is 0.68, which what that effectively means is that we've got more people living downtown than we were asked to do by the county as part of our adoption of our transportation concurrency exemption area. And that's a good thing. We've got people living and working in the same area. That's what we want. So some of the development incentives that we have applied in our downtown master plan in an effort to try to encourage Class A office is that we have increased our FAR. In some cases, we allow buildings to go from 10 to 30 stories if they provide Class A office, which is something we need desperately. I'll talk about that in a minute. We've done other incentives for all aboard Florida to provide residential. And again, we use a system of transfer of development rights to mix and match development capacities throughout the downtown in order to encourage development where we need it. Our downtown vacancy rates with regard to office have been declining. We currently have 4 office towers that are considered Class A in 3 projects in excess of 1 million square feet between Phillips Point, City Place, and Esperante. 1 million square feet, and all of that 1 million square feet is accounted for today. We don't have any real vacancies left in those buildings. So as a result, when a company comes to us for a corporate relocation and they need 70 to 100,000 square feet, unfortunately, we can't accommodate them. So again, we're providing incentives to try to encourage developments to come in. We have 3 projects now in total of 700,000 square feet that we hope 1, 2, or even all 3 will get built. The other focus we had was on downtown hotels. There was a study done a while ago that said we had about 2,000 rooms short in our downtown area. When you look at everything that's on the books right now, again, 2 projects have recently been built in the red. We have just under 2,400 in the planning stages today. They won't all get built, but certainly if half of these get built, that'll certainly address the shortage that was discovered. So when you look at what's happened recently in West Palm Beach, certainly very recently the Palm Beach Mall was raised and rebuilt as a high-end outlet mall. This was a mall, they started demolition in March of 2013. In a matter of 11 months, they knocked down 1.4 million square feet. We issued 1,400 permits, and they opened the outlet portion in February of the following year. So in just less than 11 months, all that took place. The developers, New England Development, bought that property for $30 million, recently sold it for $375 million, so a nice profit there. But what happened when the outlet mall opened, you had people leaving City Place and some of our retail quarters in Okeechobee. Some of the stores moved to the outlet mall, and what we saw was a little bit of a transformation of City Place. The Hilton Hotel opened to accompany the convention center. That was huge. What we expect to happen now over the next few years, we'll start to see the 4 or 5 day hotel convention visits, which we didn't have historically before. That is also going to pump money back into City Place. So you'll see a pedestrian crossing begin work here very shortly. We also amended our downtown master plan to create additional incentives, as I talked about earlier, for both hotels and Class A office space. Again, 2,400 hotel rooms scattered throughout the downtown. Class A offices, again, we've got 3 currently, and then we have 3 others that are proposed, again, totaling about 700,000 square feet. And again, we're continuing to work on developing the residential portions northwest and south of our downtown. A list of all our downtown projects, about 34 that we're working on. So again, some residential, the hotel in red. We have mixed use that are really a combination of office, retail, and hotel in the blue. We have non-residential in the orange, and then we've got some transportation projects that we're trying to get done as well. So a great amount of activity happening in our downtown. Citywide, this is a list of all the projects we're working on. I'd like to go through each one individually. Again, just kind of a summary of all the different things we're working on. And again, when you start to look at all the factors in West Palm Beach, again, this is building permit revenue. So you see the last 2 years, we've set a record over the last 18 years. The number of cases we've taken to our review board, you see on the right, 151, 147 cases in the last 2 years, an all-time high. The number of building permits is on the rise, and again, the amount of building permit revenue is on the rise. So all factors, moving in an upward direction. And I think that's probably similar to Natalie, and others will probably see the same thing in their respective cities. Our revenues, when you look at fiscal year 2010, our 3 main sources of revenue are building permits, business tax license fees, and planning fees. You see in fiscal year 2010, we totaled $6.8 million. And you see over the last 4 years, that number has been increasing steadily. This year, we're anticipating about $13.5 million, so double what we were doing just 5 or 6 years ago. Some phenomenal numbers. With regard to housing, that was also a topic. Jennifer spoke earlier, but we're working on, again, trying to bring workforce housing to the city of West Palm Beach. We funded a downtown project called the Verdia Place. We worked with them. Our housing and development department is doing quite a bit. Economically, we see our unemployment rate beginning to decrease, our employment force beginning to rise, and as was said earlier, as you've got businesses moving to the downtown, you've got people moving to the downtown, they're following these jobs, so we're seeing a dramatic increase in the last few years. And then closing up, again, now you see the decline I showed where we stopped in 2012. You see in the last 5 to 6 years, our numbers have been going through the roof, a 24% increase in our tax base in just the last 2 years. And we're seeing that citywide, not only downtown, but in our older residential neighborhoods as well. And then certainly with that, we see an increase in our tax revenue. Again, this is what's going to help us fund many of the necessary improvements we need citywide. So with that, Jim, I think I'm close to 5 minutes.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rick.